Arch Report. My name is Daniel Vallis and welcome to our channel. The Palmyra Triumphal Arch was set up in New York City yesterday and they had their unveiling this morning. And there's been a number of enemy events lately pointing to this time, in addition to the celestial events and the Bible shadow patterns, as well as the appointed times that we're at right now too, with the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Ingathering. And right now it is September 19th, which means we are on day 18 on the Hebrew biblical calendar that goes by celestial calendaring methods. So we are reaching a very important time because we are reaching the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles. And we've been looking in John chapter 7, verse 14 particularly, now about the midst of the feast. Jesus went up into the temple and taught. And this is a shadow pattern that we've been considering about how he was there during the Feast of Tabernacles, but he was hidden and secret and just observing people's behavior and what they said and how they acted during that time. He was watching and observing, so he was there. But he did not reveal himself until about the midst of the feast. And it leaves ambiguity of exactly when that is. About the midst. So it doesn't say the midst, it says about the midst. And so of course there's ambiguity and questioning of, is that before the midst, at the midst, right after the midst? It's around the midst. That's all we know. It's around the midst. And like the Bible tells us, we will not know the day or hour, but we have an expectation that it's going to be about the midst. And so September 19th and 20th would cover the actual midst day of the Feast of Tabernacles, which would be the 18th day, which would go from sunset to sunset. So while you're watching this video, we are right at and about the midst right now. So we are in prime time with our expectation, with the shadow patterns. The enemy activity is also pointing to this time too as well. The celestial signs are telling us this is a very important time now as well, this whole time during the Feast of Tabernacles. And we've looked at a number of shadows. We will not know the day or hour. And so we must be ready. When we find ourselves drawn to the season and the time and pointed to this time with the celestial signs and the shadow patterns that we've been studying with Shiloh and Tabernacles and Ingathering and all that pointing to this time, and then we see within the Feast of Ingathering and the Feast of Tabernacles additional clues that we should have an expectation in the first half and about the midst of the Tabernacles pattern. This is why we're looking right now, but we will not know the day or hour. And he leaves it with ambiguity, so that way we will be ready. We will be staying on our toes, so to speak, making sure we are ready, because this is how he wants to find us. Matthew 24:44, therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. And he was telling his disciples, I want you to be ready when I come back. You'll see signs that I'm about to come, but I want you to be ready, because I will be coming at a time that you do not necessarily expect me at. I want you to be ready so that when I do show up, you are ready to go. Because there will be no more preparation time once the midnight cry goes out. Once the bridegroom comes, once our beloved comes, once our Redeemer comes, the time to make ourselves ready will be over. We must make ourselves ready beforehand. He wants to find us already ready. And that's why he gave us the parable of the wise virgins. We are supposed to be wise. We are supposed to be faithful. We are supposed to be good. And make ourselves ready beforehand so that when he shows up, we are ready to go. And just like the parable of the virgins, they knew an approximate time that the bridegroom would be arriving, but they did not know the hour. And same for us. We do not know the exact details, but we know we should be ready because we know a time frame. We know he is coming and he has pointed to this time, and we've seen so much coming together right now that goes along with what he told us to look for. And we have been looking up, and we have the great expectation that our Redeemer is coming to pick up what he has already redeemed, and to take us to the place he has already prepared for us, where we will tabernacle with him. All these pictures are coming together at this very important appointed time, the last one on the calendar for this year. And so we've been looking at how the enemy also knows this time is very important. It also relates to the days of Noah and Lot, of how judgment will come in one day. Everything will be going along just as normal. People will be living as though life goes on, but judgment will come in one day for those who are not watching. Those who are not making themselves ready either, on an eternal level with their eternal destiny, and or not making themselves ready for their Lord and their Redeemer, not being a faithful servant. And right now, the enemy is marking with the symbolism of the triumphal arch and the setup, and particularly the location and the other cue cards that they've been putting out lately too. They know this is the time. They are aware of the celestial clock as well, but they are getting ready for the son of perdition to be revealed, the son of perdition to be unrestrained. They are ready for him to make his triumphal entry. And so they are making sure that Satan's disciples are on their toes and that they are ready as well. And we put out the request in our last video for boots on the ground, and we did have one person, Miranda Smith, thank you very much, for going out and taking this picture while they were setting it up. It definitely let us know the timing and that they were on track and where they were setting it up and that things were still going forward. So the unveiling and the arch is set up. It's still being promoted at this time. It's going to be there for a week. And it reminded me of 2 Kings 18, the story of Elijah, when he confronted the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. But definitely read it. 2 Kings chapter 18. Read the story where God showed how powerless Baal was, how he was a non-god, how he was nobody. He was completely powerless. And it's an incredible story of the fire coming down from heaven. And it's also a reminder of what's going to be during the tribulation period too. Because the spirit of Elijah is going to be coming in the two witnesses. They're going to be showing up and showing how foolish the enemies of God are and who they worship and all that. The spirit of Elijah is going to be doing very similar things during the tribulation period. And we are right on that cusp right now. So it is amazing to see this pattern rehearsed too. They are trying to promote Baal and the ideals of that. And at the same time, we know that the spirit of Elijah is coming onto the scene and is going to be showing them that there is only one true God in heaven. We're at the end times right now, and a very important threshold where we are right now. We must stay vigilant. We must stay ready. The enemy is expecting to be unrestrained any day now. And that's going to kick off a lot of other events. Now, if you are in the area still, please take some pictures. We would definitely like some additional coverage. I would be really interested to see how they lighted up tonight, to see if they lighted up red like they did in Trafalgar Square. So if you have any pictures, please send them to info@informedchristians.com. And thank you in advance. The Son of Man, Jesus Christ, is about to be revealed, and he's about to pick up his purchased possession. And once that happens, though, then the son of perdition will be unrestrained. And he's going to come onto the scene with all sorts of power and signs and lying wonders. It's going to be an incredible show. But he cannot do that until he is unrestrained. If you haven't yet, definitely check out our article, What is the Falling Away? In 2 Thessalonians 2:3, which talks about how the falling away is another term for the rapture. So definitely download and study this Bible study where we go in depth into the context. There is a link in the description box. Christ is coming. He's going to be revealed when life is going on like normal. Before the tribulation even starts, Christ is coming back for his redeemed possession, coming to pick it up before the tribulation even starts. When people have no overt warnings that the end is about to happen, when they have no overt warnings that judgment is about to fall. It's going to be just like the day when Noah entered into the ark. And just like the story of Noah and Lot, the examples that Christ gave his disciples, judgment will come on that exact same day too as well. There are so many shadow patterns coming together at this last final appointed feast time, wrapping up the tapestry of redemption that we've been studying over the entire year so far already. This is one of the main reasons why we have high expectation at this time. We are expecting to be picked up by our Redeemer and to be taken to the place that our bridegroom has prepared for us. So we will eternally tabernacle with him. Right during this Feast of Ingathering, this Feast of Tabernacles. So right now we're at the midst of the feast, and we have high expectation. Right around the midst of the feast, we are expecting the Son of Man to be revealed, Jesus Christ, our Redeemer, our Savior. Now, the other day I mentioned that the oculus will open on the equinox. That was not quite correct. Got it mistaken with 9/11. It opens on 9/11, the windows at the top. But it is still pertinent to the fall equinox because the building was specifically made to line up and accent the fall equinox. So both these are still correct. On 9/11, just a few days ago, the oculus opened, pointing to what they are anticipating, the One World Order, embodied right now by the One World Trade Center. And then right at its foot basically is the Oculus train station with the slit eye at the top. But I was reminded of the Oculus's connection with the event that's happening the day before that. the UN International Day of Peace, which the logo is the dove from the story of Noah's Ark with the olive branch too as well. They know exactly what time it is and the significance of this time. But I was reminded that the Oculus Station building was built to resemble a dove being released. That's what the architect mentioned many times, that this is what the building was originally meant to resemble, a dove taking flight, being released, just like Noah when he released the dove too as well. There is so much Noah symbolism going on right now. They know exactly we are in the days of Noah. They know exactly that the flood and the judgment is about to come too as well. And it's going to come on a largely unsuspecting world. Now, when we look at the placement, the Oculus is almost right next to the One World Trade Center. It's right across the way from the Brookfield place with the palms and the gateway there and the symbolism and the white rabbit display that they had earlier this year too as well. And there's a lot of alignment and deliberateness to the layout here. The Oculus was built and aligned. They had the whole building oriented to line up with the fall equinox and accent it. And then at the Brookfield place, which is right across the way, it even has a gym called the Equinox. Yes, right at the Brookfield place, there's a place called Equinox right across from the Oculus, which was made to line up with the fall equinox. Very interesting. They're also having some special yoga classes on the fall equinox in a few days too as well, to celebrate their namesake. But many of you are probably familiar with the Georgia Guidestones. These were also made to line up with the fall equinox and the other equinoxes and solstices too. This was made to accent them as well. The slot there on the front, which is at eye height, by the way. This is not a small monument at all. That slot is at eye height. And that slot and hole is oriented so that on the solstices you can see the sunrise through that, and then also on the equinoxes too. It's highlighted through that. They have this whole monument oriented deliberately to coincide with the equinoxes and solstices. So when I'm pointing out to you that the Oculus was built, they built the entire structure to line up with the fall equinox. This is not just some lark that they decided to go on of, oh, let's line up the building with the equinox. No, this is very deliberate. They have very intentional symbolism that they are doing with that, because they are aware of the celestial movements too as well, and they have distorted meaning that goes with it all. But they are watching the celestial clock. And they have a lot of reasons for why they line up their buildings the way they are and attach different meanings to the equinoxes and the sun movements and the star movements too as well. It's all done deliberately to send a message for what they believe. Now, some of you may remember the cube that was added to the Georgia Guidestones back in 2014, and then how there was a certain occult ceremony that took place there that was broadcast, very laden with symbolism, a lot of different interpretations on it too as well that come to different conclusions. And some people were surmising that the cube pointed to the fall equinox in 2014 because that was close to the time it was unveiled. And then other people have put forth evidence that it's pointing to 2016 fall equinox just because of the alignment with the fall equinox there, but with also the 5776 switching over to 5777 on the dollar bill and the pyramid and the mystery of iniquity and all that. So you'll find a number of conclusions out there, but keep in mind that the cube was placed there 11 days before the fall equinox in 2014, and then the smashing ceremony took place 2 days afterwards. It was all centered around the fall equinox, which the Georgia Guidestones are made to accent, just like the Oculus was also built to accent the fall equinox. And what is right next to the Oculus? 2 sunken cubes within a cube. 2 tesseracts. Very interesting symbolism that they've been tying together. We don't know the conclusion. We don't know exactly what it all means, but there is a deliberate reason why they have all this constructed the way it is, bringing attention to this time, and it has a lot deeper meaning to them. But they are also very aware of what the celestial clock time is and the celestial movements. And there is a very important reason why they're setting the arch up right now. The fall equinox is on the 22nd. Don't know if anything's going to happen then, but it definitely appears that we're on the threshold of some major events happening anyway. There's a lot coming together. The enemy is extremely busy. We should not be ignorant of that. He is up to no good for sure. But we also have the high expectation that our Lord is coming to gather his people at this time. And this is why we make ourselves ready. As watchmen, we keep our eye on the enemy and what they're doing, in light of this celestial and prophetic time that we are watching, but always keeping foremost on our mind that we are expecting our beloved and we are living in light of his return. And we have the high expectation that right around here, around the midst of the Feast of Tabernacles, he is coming to gather his bride. 1 John 3:3, and every man that hath this hope in him purifieth himself even as he is pure. Now is when we strive to be Christ-like, so that he can see himself shining in our life. Be ye ready. Definitely download our guide, which studies several different Bible passages and warnings and guidelines that Christ gave his disciples, his own servants, of how we can be ready when he shows up. Definitely study the Purify and Sanctify sheets. Great reminders, just helps us to trim off the works of darkness and help us to put on the armor of light so we can shine brighter. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. Be ye ready. Let him find us faithful, let him find us good, let him find us wise, living in light of his return, let him find us ready, shining bright, and serving him first and highest above all else. Maranatha.